we are going to get back into the questions. So,
Okay.
earlier you were talking about how when you were working with these other employers, the other practices, sometimes it gets a little draining. And also when you move into different environments, it can shift your balance, your wellness. And so how do you incorporate self-care into your daily life with all the other external factors that you have going on? And then also when you moved from Arkansas to Seattle, a different space, like how did you make sure that you were still taking care of you and you were still good?
Yeah, yeah. That was I'll be honest with you, my transition to Washington was really difficult. It was really hard because there were things we talked earlier about expectations and reality. There were things that I expected, there were things that I thought, but there were things that I just didn't even like they weren't even on my radar to think about, right? So
Right.
there was a lot of transition that happened in that regard. Not just for me, but for my entire family, for my kids, for my husband, for my dog. There was just a lot of transition for us collectively and individually, different aspects of our lives. I went from being completely surrounded by everybody in the world that I knew to being surrounded by nobody in the world that I knew except for the people that I brought with me.
Mm-hmm.
And my family nickname. Y'all call me my family nickname all the time, but nobody up here called me that. And
Mm-hmm.
I didn't really think about how impactful that was. Like
Right.
it was almost a loss of identity, to
Mm-hmm.
be completely honest with you. Um, and it was in that loss of identity that took, again, if I'm being completely honest, it took every bit of about 4 years. I've been up here 6 years now to just get to a place where I didn't feel like I was, um, where I was, I can imagine myself, and I don't know if you can see this, but like a tightrope
Mm-hmm.
walker who has a big stick and they're balancing on this one very straight line. It took about every bit of 4 years for me to not feel like I was walking on this tightrope
Right.
of transition. And either way, I'm going to topple over to one side or another. I'm going to fall or
Mm-hmm.
something. And that was just an overwhelming feeling. So it was through that I really started to realize what self-care looked like. My entire
Mm-hmm.
body was out of balance. My hair started breaking off, right? My skin was breaking out, my weight was fluctuating. I wasn't well. I wasn't well on any front. But it took that transition for me to get to this place of wellness and self-care, and realizing and developing my definition of self-care as a human regulatory function, that
Mm-hmm.
I have to pull from other things. I have to make sure that I protect myself from people who suck energy for me.
Mm-hmm.
I have to make sure that I'm eating the right foods. I went on a path of more of a plant-based diet a couple of years back. So now I'm primarily plant-based. I went to dreadlocks. I found an amazing loctician.
Yes.
Her name is Zoo. If anybody comes up here, she's my girl.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that I didn't realize how much just that, like, I don't even mess with my own hair much anymore these days, because that by itself has been so healing to be able to give that to her. This is her gift, to be able to give that to
Mm-hmm.
her. So having her to do my hair, and that's been a self-care that I just
Mm-hmm.
invest in. The other thing was I had to figure out, my body in this environment.
Mm-hmm.
I had to figure out, what works for me, because in the fall and winter months, there's there's a lot of darkness. The sun doesn't really come
Yes.
up till about 7:30 in the morning, and then it sets at like starts setting at like 4:30 or 5. So there's the daytime hours are shorter, and that played a huge factor on my own mental health. So
Mm-hmm.
my husband bought me a sunlight. So we have a sunlight. I had two. I had one for home and one for work.
Mm-hmm.
um those kinds of things. And then just again, the factors that I mentioned to you earlier: your physical wellness, your emotional wellness, your social wellness. I try to, find places that I'm volunteering with, who am I donating time to, that
Mm-hmm.
filled them and that also filled me. my cognition. I'm reading a whole lot more, learning new things, because I think that's important in order to keep your mental wellness going, to keep your cognitive activity, up to par. I have certain things that I just happen to love. Here's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
This is a little bag of lavender. What this does is when I smell it, in between sessions, a lot of times my clients are back to back to back, but just holding this in my hand and smelling this, it releases that odor, but it reminds me to take a deep breath, right? It reminds me that when I'm in the pace of going, I need to breathe. I need to take a deep breath in, because that oxygen also starts to dilute some of the hormones that are the emotional hormones that are coming from my amygdala and just overtaking my brain. And it allows me to re-engage my prefrontal cortex, which is my logic center of my brain, and I can think clearly. Another thing is I have to, my husband, he knows if I don't eat, it is not fun for anybody in the house. If I don't eat. There have been times when he has said something and I have turned around and I might have growled at him, literally growled at him. And before I know it, he stepped back and he's throwing granola bars at me, like I'm going. He's like, eat this. It's time to self-care when you walk down the stairs and your dog hears your voice and takes off running. It's time to eat, or it's time to engage in self-care, because when you don't self-care and when you don't take care of yourself, you're right, everything around you is affected and everybody around you is affected. And so when I shift, everything shifts. And when I'm in balance, the dog is happy, the husband is happy, I'm happy, so that's it. It's important. And so I found ways, and I also, work my clients through ways of discovering their own sustainable self-care routines. Because I think it's important that your self-care doesn't give you anxiety. If you're trying to think about how you're going to afford this gym bill, this gym membership every month, that's probably not the best self-care tool for you. Right? You maybe want to figure out what you can do from home with some canned fruit or canned vegetables, or some bags of whatever, bag of potatoes or whatever, or the stairs. If you have stairs at home, use your stairs, right? You may want to think about, bedtime routine. That's a thing that I've implemented. I don't do it every night, but I often do a bedtime routine, because my brain doesn't always shut off at night like it's supposed to. And my bedtime routine allows me to start preparing my mind to go to bed. You can shut off your social media an hour before you want to go to bed. You can take a shower in the bathroom with a nightlight or a salt lamp to diminish the light and kind of give your body, your brain, the cues that, it's nighttime. Instead of having all your lights on in the background, it's time to go to bed, right? You can, I like to use this. This is a rose water. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, yes, I know about that.
Yes, rose water glycerin. I love it. I love it to spray in my head, like right before I go to bed, and put my scarf on or whatever, because I love the smell of the rose water. And again, it just kind of lulls me to sleep. I have a playlist. Yeah, it just relaxes you. There's a playlist of tonal sounds that I like to listen to. So that's how, I guess, I know that was kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but that's how I just kind of morphed my transition from Arkansas to here, kind of morphed into this idea of discovery of, if I don't do these things, I'm doing harm to myself, and I'm no good for anybody. The other thing is, I feel like it's important to mention, is that I also learned to communicate differently. Communication is a big tool of self-care in our home and in our relationship. Just because if we're not openly communicating with each other, then one of us or both of us, we're holding on to things, and that starts to build up, resentment. It festers, and that creates anxiety, and that creates depression, and it creates a whole vortex of negativity that we all get sucked into. So being open and transparent, and just, coming to terms with we have to do this together if we're going to, both of us are going to be well and both of us are going to be healthy. We have to communicate openly about different things. And so I'm so grateful for my husband. He is probably my biggest cheerleader, not just professionally, personally, all the things. He is that biggest cheerleader for me. And I hope that he would say that I am for him as well. So, but yeah, those are that is self-care kind of.
Yes.
I hope that answered your question.
Yes, I love it. As you were talking about all these techniques, it's just like, oh yeah, that sounds good. Like, it sounds real peaceful, real relaxing, and definitely with the smells. So I've learned that smell is the most strong, I guess that you would say, sense that relaxes us and affects our mood. And so lighting that candle, having your little wallflower or something, just giving off that good scent. I love eucalyptus. That smell, I don't know why I love it so much, but that smell is my smell, and it just definitely gives you that relaxation. So yeah,
absolutely.
So yeah, the scent thing that would be great. Another thing I know you didn't talk about, but having plants around. So being a plant parent, let me tell you guys, y'all make it look so easy. So I started trying to buy a plant, and it was dying on me. It's little Pablo. Little Pablo went under some surgery.
You named him. Him.
I did.
Good stuff.
So I had to. So it's a succulent. So it was like multiple in this big old vase, and like they overwatered it at the place. And so when I got it, it was dying and dying. So he's recuperating. He's doing great right now. But yeah, being a plant parent is something that I have enjoyed, and I know that you do a big part of that.
I do. It's one of my favorite things, actually. And we just bought a home, so we'll be moving pretty soon. So now my plants have their space on the porch, and so I'm setting up their little home, their little staggered platforms and stuff, because some need more light than others or whatever. So that's really fun, and it was a thing that really helped me in my transition. I had one plant in particular that I brought from Arkansas to Washington with me. And I actually got this plant at my grandfather's funeral years ago. And I'd kept it alive, all these years. And here it is 2020. When I got here, it's interesting looking back on it now, because when I moved here, things were good. I didn't start feeling the decline until later, in the transition. But I could look at that plant. I'm thinking back on it. I can look at that plant and realize, oh, I'm not good. My plant is dying. Because if you remember coming to my home in Arkansas, my plants were always alive. I had a cousin who used to bring me his plants when they were dying and say, hey, can you bring this back to life? And I'd bring it back to life and then give it back to him. Right. And so that was my thing. So when my plant was dying, that plant was dang near gone. Right. And I realized, when I started to kind of come out of that was when the plant started growing again, because I started noticing, I need to take care of that. I should water this. And that passion that I had for greenery was coming back into my space again. So that was being a plant parent, like you said, I love that term. I've never heard that term before, but being a plant parent is a good marker. If you're a true plant parent, it's a good marker for an indicator of your own mental stability as well, because you could definitely see the transition. And had I thought about it then, I would have taken pictures of my transition by the way this plant was looking.
Right.
And to see it now, it's kind of amazing. It's still not as big as it used to be, but it has other brothers and sisters around it now to encourage it to grow.
Yeah. So that's great. Yeah, I just said plant parent because I'm like, man, this feels like being a real parent. And then
it is.
When it was dying, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm a terrible mother. Like, I'm still learning. Like, it's not in the past. It's going on.
Right.
So
absolutely.
But that's one.
Connect yourself to a good nursery in the area if you can, and because they're really knowledgeable, at the nurseries, and maybe they can kind of help you with some pointers and tips.
So you mean like a plant nursery?
Yeah.
Oh, so that's the thing.
That's the thing.
Well, yeah, let me go look up a nursery to help me take care of my child, Pablo. So yeah. I would like to talk about any
Okay.
advice you have. So
Okay.
when I'm gonna put you in the scenario. So you're working, when you're working with these other practices, or just being around different people. Some people can be very ignorant, and it can go left. Just what advice? So what advice would you have when dealing with racial tensions, racial adversity, and not falling into that stereotype of being an angry Black woman?
Right, absolutely. I think had you asked me this question before the current, social climate, I
Mhm.
probably would have said something a little bit differently because I remember responding differently to these moments, right? And I've
Mhm.
had several of these moments as a Black woman, as a young Black woman. Growing up in the South, you really can't avoid it. It's just kind of the way of the South, to be honest with you. And even being here in Washington State, um, racism still exists. It's more passive, I think. It's not as in your face. And to be honest with you, I think I'd rather have the upfront, overt racism that's kind of in your face, because you at least then you know what you're dealing with, right? Here,
Right.
you kind of are you second guessing, kind of
Mhm.
always second guessing yourself and second guessing, was that microaggression? Did he just say what I think he
Mhm.
said? And then it's excused away as, something else. And so there have been certain incidents in my life since I've been here and in Washington, where as a young Black woman, I didn't speak up. I didn't speak
Mhm.
my voice. I didn't speak my mind. I didn't call anybody out. I didn't go left with them. You know, I maintained my professionalism, and then when I got home, I may have cried, or I would have called a girlfriend, or something like that, or I would have wrote about it in my journal, because you're in a position. Well, I was, and many of us actually, we're
Right.
Black people. We're in a position where we have to quickly assess, if I say something, what are the consequences of me saying something? Whether I say it professionally or whether I go left, and just
Mhm.
go straight hood, right? Either way, either way, I'm gonna deal with. I'm gonna have to deal with the consequences that come along with that. So if I say something professionally, or even not professionally, if I just kind of call them out on what they've said, then I stand a chance of being called into HR, because now I've hurt someone's feelings,
Mhm.
right? Or I've misunderstood something, and so now there's some corrective action of some sort. And do I have the time? So we have to quickly assess: do I have the time? Do I have the energy, the emotional capacity to actually deal with the backlash of what I'm about to say? And in those moments, I quickly decided no. It's like, no, I can't, because if I do, even if nothing happens on a professional level in HR, then this person goes back to their friends and say, Erica got all offended, and I don't know why, because I was just joking. It was just a joke. And that's probably ugly of me to make that statement like that, and make that voice like that. But that's been the response, right? It's like, I was just joking, and I was expected as a Black woman to just go along with the joke, go
Mhm.
along with the joke, and kind of suck up my feelings or whatever, and be like, oh, okay, well, since you were just joking, I guess it's all right, you
Mhm.
know. But now I'm of a different mindset right now. I'm of a different mindset right now. Like I said, this current social climate, I think, has given all of us insight into our own behaviors. And I know we sent you a book to read, and you'll get to reading this book, so I don't want to give too much of it away. But I think as Black people, this current social environment has given us insight into our own behaviors, and how we have, individually and collectively, how we have supported some of the racial comments, some of the disparaging comments that have come towards us, some of the ignorance, as you call it. We
Mhm.
support it by not speaking up. Our silence gives license, so to speak, to the continuation of those remarks and those underhanded comments, because I'm just joking, right?
Mhm.
And or my friends are Black. I have Black friends, or I have a Black neighbor, or my sister's cousin's brother-in-law married a Black girl, or whoever, whatever, whatever it was that justifies their right to say something or touch, our bodies or our hair or whatever, all of those things are offensive. Their words, their physical actions. So now, I've spoken. I recently posted a thing on posting on Facebook, speaking about this very thing. It's like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done having these conversations. I said nothing during all these times when these different incidents happened to me, and I was violated. Right? I'll share one, incident. I was running my first 10K, and this white lady just literally ran up to me, and I didn't even see her face. She literally palmed the back of my head saying, "I'm going to touch your hair," literally stuck her hand in the back of my afro puff and squeezed and ran off. I never saw her face. I felt so violated. I felt assaulted, and I never saw her face. Right. Now that wasn't necessarily a professional environment, but that kind of stuff happens whether you're in a professional environment or not. And as Black people, as Black women, especially, we are Black men too, we are expected to uphold a level of standard. And if we don't hold this standard of behavior, then we're labeled the angry Black woman or the angry Black man, when I don't care about that label anymore, right? I don't care about that label anymore. I'm going to correct you if I get put into that label and into that category, because I'm not angry. I'm assertive, right? I'm going to be firm. I'm going to be educated, and I'm going to educate you about the ignorance of your comment or your behavior, right? And I'm going to do it in a very nice and polite way. I'm not going to cuss at you because I don't feel like it's necessary to cuss at you. There's only a certain couple of circumstances that now, and I used to, I would throw the words around. I would, but I have evolved, right? And now, there are moments and there are times when those are appropriate uses of the words to give real emphasis. But if I feel like I can say what I need to say without having to use, swear words or cuss words, I'm gonna tell you, and so. I think the answer is twofold almost. Like I said, that kind of sets, it gives you the background of where I'm coming from. But I feel like individually we have to assess the situation that we're in. What do you have to lose? What do you have to gain? Will you be able to sleep at night if you don't say what it is you need to say? Is that person's comment going to roll in your mind over and over again? Are you going to harbor some ill feelings and some resentment towards this person? Are these words going to come in and be a dark Black seed in your body that's going to take over, your body, your emotions? Is it going to take up so much of your time and your space? If that's the case, I suggest start practicing now. Start thinking now. Start having these conversations now in your groups of friends and families. How do we address these issues in an appropriate manner? Talk to your moms, talk to your dads, talk to your friends, talk to your elders, talk to people who are younger than you, and just get a sense of an idea of how are we as Black people addressing certain issues? How are we having these conversations with our white friends, our white allies, and even our white enemies? Sometimes your silence is deafening. Sometimes your silence is needed. Sometimes you don't need to say anything, right? I had a person reach out to me in response to the Facebook posting that I put on. And my initial thought was, I should respond to her. But then I thought, no, I'm not going to respond to her, because the only thing I can see happening right now is a justification of where she was at that time, therefore minimizing my very lived experience. I'm not going to let that person take that lived experience away with her justification, because her justification is there to make her feel good. I'm no longer interested in making you feel good about you. That's your self-reflection that you need to do. I know that sounds quite militant of me.
Oh,
you know.
I'm here. I'm just like, yes, preach, Lamar.
But that's where I am, and to keep it professional, you think about who you are, what are your values in any situation, not just in that one, but in any situation. What are your values? What are your core beliefs? What are you standing on? And allow that to kind of be your guide for response, so to speak. But I definitely say educate yourself, understand, what's going on. Understand the person that's making the comments also, because you may have people in your life who are making comments, ignorant comments. I'm just going to keep using your phrase, ignorant comments or ignorant behaviors that don't actually realize what they're doing, and these are people that you love, that you cherish. I have people in my family, that are white, that may have said things or may have done things that would be kind of offensive, to be honest with you. But these are not people that mean me harm, right? They're just people that are not aware of things that was said, or the impact of the thing that they said. And that, because there's already a relationship there, because there's that friendship or that love already there, it's kind of opened up a doorway or a pathway for me to be able to speak to them in love, in honesty, in transparency, in truth, and have an open dialogue. So that's been really helpful. So take that, as an answer to just assess yourself individually, and also assess the person, and then assess your environment before making a decision on a response. And again, like I said, just talk to people in your circle, in your groups, so that you can start formulating your words, formulating what you're going to say, so that you're not responding emotionally.
Right.
You don't want to ever just come off as this loose cannon either, right? You want to be above that. So yeah.
So I have nothing to say to that. You hit it right on the head. I love just what you said and how you put it. I feel like it's okay to feel the way we feel and the way we respond. Like you said, at first it was kind of like you held back and everything, but when you think about how that's going to affect you in the long run, like sleeping at night, how you feel, bringing that home to the people around you, that anger, that frustration, you really have to think about all that. But yes, I have nothing else to say with that.
Okay.
That's great. So going back to you being a licensed mental health counselor. So of course with this there was school involved with it, and so you had to go in the books and you had to study this, and you kind of talked about it earlier, how your first job, that kind of helps you understand, it's not just the book, is actually the experience and what you do, that human interaction. And any advice or just what has been your experience just transitioning from the books to the actual real life? Because even with me being studying athletic training, it's all book work, but this career is hands on. And so how do you just transition from the books to actual your actual career?
Right. This is something that I've discovered over the years, and now that I have a son who's also in college, and I'm sharing these lessons with him, so this is really fitting that you're asking me that question right now. But I look now back on my years in college, my graduate school experience, as foundation building. Right? I think at the time when I was in school, I thought, oh, I need to learn all these things. I need to cement these things into my brain. They need to be a part of my blood. I need to breathe them. I need to eat them. I need to drink them. I need to, all these different concepts in, not, because this is going to be my livelihood, right? I have to learn all these things. But what I didn't really realize was that, no, this is just your foundation. This is also based in science, and science changes. Techniques will change. Information will change. There's research being done while I'm sitting in class that's going to contradict the research that I'm reading in class, you know? So all of those different things are happening at the same time. And so what I've evolved into is realizing that once you're done with school, is that your learning never stops. Opening your mind to embrace your experiences, your internships, even your interactions with just regular, normal, everyday people. Everywhere you go is a learning experience. And that's something I learned that I hold dear to my heart. I learned that from my husband, actually, just everything is a classroom. That was his phrase. We're going to class. Anywhere we go, we're going to learn something new. And so this world is your whole classroom. And so just adopting that idea and into your graduate school experience, understand that this is just your foundation. Once you're done, once you get your degree, it opens up a doorway for you to have more experiences that you wouldn't necessarily get to have. And those experiences will also be a classroom for you. Coming out of school, I learned I pretty much really early had to get rid of a lot of stuff that I learned in grad school, like really early on, because the population I was dealing with, they were foster kids. A lot of my clients were foster kids, and a lot of them had involvement with the juvenile courts. A lot of them were going to school, and they were living in families where, Kennedi, they didn't know where their next meal was going to come from, right? Some of them weren't coming to school. They were being held as delinquents in school because they had to stay home while their parents were working these night jobs, or some of their parents weren't even around, and they're having to get their younger siblings to school, so they were missing their first 2 periods of class or something like that. So there was a lot going on, and there was a lot of education that needed to go around understanding, and education from that I needed to understand, oh wait, again, these kids, their basic needs are not being met. Some of their basic needs are not being met, and some of their families' basic needs are not being met. So of course they're acting out in school. So then this became like me having to, let's educate some of these teachers on, this is why this child might be possibly, acting this way or whatever. So it was a whole different experience than being in school, a whole different classroom setting. And it was real, and it was lived. And I don't think that I appreciated that at the time, that this is a classroom experience, until I got this knowledge or this wisdom from, my husband, like I said, to look at life as a classroom experience. Then I was able to go back into, those memories and stuff. It's like, yeah, I learned a lot. And those were skills that I've learned that I've been able to translate into real life work experience. Just interacting with people, and in my own life, my own raising 3 kids, by myself. I had to learn how to organize calendars and organize, there was a great organizational aspect that came along with being a single mama. So guess what I got to do? That was a whole classroom experience that I didn't know I was having. And now translating that into real life experience and work experience as well. So,
yeah, I love the way you put it. Like, this world is your classroom. So
right.
Through that, you definitely have to be open-minded. And so any encouragement that you have for my listeners, just to not be small-minded and just be open to embrace whatever's out there, the cultures, the food, the religions, everything that's out there. Just some encouragement through that.
Yeah, I would say release the judgment, release the judgment of things that are unknown. Just because it's a different culture, you don't know anything about it, don't turn your nose up at it and be like, oh, what are they doing? That's not the way we do it, because that's how we are. We can do that. When you talk about being small-minded and closed-minded, open your mind, allow yourself to have hinges on your mind so that your mind can expand and grow with every new encounter that you see, or every new encounter that you come up against, with new people, new experiences, like you said, new foods. If you have an opportunity to move out of your city, move out of your state, join the military is a great way to experience different cultures, because people coming from all over to get into the military, you're going to learn a whole lot about their lives and build these, sometimes lifelong relationships. My husband has a bunch of beautiful lifelong relationships and friends from people that he met during his military years, and these are people that are still in our lives, today, and that's been, good Lord, over 20 years ago. So those experiences, and he's taught me to kind of look at life in that regard as well. So that would be my advice to some of your listeners, is to lose the judgment. This is a really big world. Experience it. And I say that specifically, I say that with in my mind. I know you and I have had conversations about religion, about spirituality, and what that looks like, and how many different religions, and how people interpret and define spirituality. So you and I have had all these different conversations, and I would say that, I know we've been kind of taught to just, one way, this is the way you believe, but everybody doesn't believe the same way we believe, right?
Right.
Other people believe different things, and that's okay, for them to believe whatever it is that they believe. Open your mind up to understand their belief system. Open your mind up to understand, because that their belief system is also going to color and paint how they view the world as well, right? And it will also color and paint how they interact with people, right? So it's going to do all of these different things, but so it's just this idea of opening yourself up to accept people are different.
Mm-hmm.
Things are different.
Yeah.
And you can grow and you can learn from all of these different people and all of these different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be the advice that I would give to your listeners, is to try it for 1 week. Go up to somebody, or at least approach somebody, or experience something that you've formerly turned your nose up at, and see what you can learn from it.
Yeah.
Open yourself up for new things.
Definitely. I agree with that. And I would just like to add on, during the times when you want to embrace, or you have the desire, you shouldn't feel bad that you would want to do that. So one thing, me getting ready for grad school and stuff, it's like I can't feel bad, for leaving, my hometown or my family. It's just, it's kind of bigger than me. So, you just you have to go out there and embrace it, or not even just moving, spirituality or different aspects. Just don't be afraid. Don't feel bad that you want to feel that way, or that you would like to express it. Embrace that. That's what I was trying to say. When you trying to embrace that. So yes.
Okay. I love that. I love that idea. You're right. Don't be afraid. That's a really good point to add on to that. Don't be afraid to get out there and experience those different things, and because it is bigger than you.
Mm-hmm.
It's bigger than you, and as long as you think that it's not bigger than you, and it's not bigger than where you are, then guess what? It will never be bigger than you and bigger than where you are, and you are doing yourself and the world a disservice. I remember when, and this is the last thing I'll say to this, because it just, when you said that, it just kind of brought up this phrase again. I know I've brought up my husband more than I probably needed to in this conversation, but he really is just such a beautiful person, a loving soul that has encouraged me to be my best self. And one of the things he said to me very early on, before I even moved from Arkansas, was that Arkansas is not big enough for you.
Mm.
He said those words to me, and at the time I didn't really know what he meant, and it wasn't until after my 4 years of transitioning here that I realized, oh, this is what he meant. Because now every time I come back to Arkansas, I look at it and I'm like, wow, I was really comfortable here. And now I don't even feel like I fit here anymore.
Yeah.
And so his words to me are actually coming true. Not that I'm, bigger or whatever, but my mind has expanded different cultures to accept different cultures and different beliefs and different everything, viewing people differently. And so that was not something that I feel like I would have experienced, or a growth path that I would have been on had I stayed in Arkansas.
Right.
Right. Nothing against Arkansas. I love me some Arkansas because that's my home, that's my foundation, that's everything. You know, Arkansas is home to me, and I just now have a new home. You know, yeah,
Okay.
and that's totally okay. Yeah.
Yes. So, yes, I agree with everything that you said. And Miss Erica Cherry, I want to thank you for coming on and spilling your cupful. I hope that you enjoyed the interview.
I did. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, so everyone listening, I hope that y'all got a good cupful with great things to offer. Make sure that you're staying safe out here. You know, you're doing great things, going outside your comfort zone, trying new things, and make sure that you're having that self-care. Make sure that you're staying motivated, stay hustling, stay humble, and stay hungry. And I'll see you on the next cupful.